Back in March, I actually talked to our staff and leadership team, and we actually went through what I called the One campaign. How many of you guys actually remember the One campaign? I see a few hands. I see that hand, and I see that hand. So as we went through March, we actually prayed that God would move in our church and that we would be able to contribute and be partners in these areas in one way. So what we began to think of when we looked at the life of Christ and the ministry of Christ and what he came to do, he came to give of himself, he came to serve, he actually came to reach us, to seek and to save that which was lost. And we were going through a sermon series at the time where this made really sense. The overlap of those things made a lot of sense. And I ran it by our team and felt like we were getting clearance from God. It seemed like we were getting clearance to just push our church in the direction of giving 1% of our income increased, and then serving one Sunday a month, and then even reaching one person in our life through prayer or inviting them or something like that. There was something I said towards the end of that campaign, which was about 3 weeks that I just spent some extended time, kind of like I'm doing now. And I essentially just said, hey, this is all I'm going to say about it. I'm going to drop it. I just feel like this is what we need to do, and I have dropped it. Except that a few wise people in our church, some men and women, have reached out and said, Kris, I really think that we should continue to push in. And we don't have to hassle everybody, and we don't have to mention it every Sunday, but we should be mentioning this from time to time to really encourage our church in this direction. There's nothing wrong with stretching us a little bit in giving and stretching us a little bit to serve, and especially stretching us, continuing to push in to stretch us to see who we can reach. So having said that, I'm not going to be around to really push these initiatives for the next few weeks, but I want you to pray about it, because starting today, I'm going to mention the One campaign. And then again, once a month from September through the end of the year, we're going to mention the campaign and really try to encourage everyone to be a part of that. Now, what was exciting about that was that almost within a couple of months, probably 6 to 8 weeks, we actually saw an uptick in all three of those categories. I was encouraged, Melanie and I in particular, who Melanie tracks the numbers, but Melanie and I in particular were encouraged to see that some folks were giving, and we saw that some people did sign up and to serve on a ministry team, and we even saw, and actually were able to talk to people who are inviting their friends to church and investing in them, inviting them to community group and hearing stories like that. So we were genuinely encouraged, and I still am. So if you participated in the One campaign, I'm encouraged by that and grateful to you for that. However, only about 10% of our church actually participated. And so I think what I want to communicate going out for the next few weeks and then coming back is just how essential it is that we participate, and just how critical is that more of us actually consider what we can do in those three areas, especially if you're able to do that. So I don't want to add undue pressure to you if you're not able for some reason to participate or make a commitment in any one of those categories. But I do want to push you to really consider this as a church and consider what we can do, especially as we go into the fall. There are just a few things that we as a church will need going into the fall. And to give you an example is that we, at this point in our budget, is so tight that we wouldn't actually be able to do the leadership cohort, which is why we've been kind of pushing it off. And my hope is that more of us would contribute to the One campaign by way of serving and even giving and even reaching people, so that we could actually pull off some of the things that we have in our hearts to do. So I'm encouraging you to consider that, and encouraging you that's just one example of a need we have going into the fall. But there are a few needs like that we have as a church that I want to encourage you to consider and really pray about, so that when we get into the fall and as we work through the fall to finish the year, I'm hoping that we will actually see not just an increase in giving and not just an increase in serving, but I'm genuinely hopeful that all of this leads to a greater impact, where as we reach the people in our sphere of influence and relationships, they're coming, they're being a part of our church or community groups, and we're actually having a meaningful impact on their lives. That's my hope for Anchor Church. And so I want you to pray about that. I think that's what I'm going to say for now, and then I'll mention it again when I get back. But I want you to think about it, pray about it. I'm going to be spending the next few weeks just praying about the direction of our church, praying for God to provide for our church, and actually praying that God would open up doors of opportunity for us to share the gospel with people. not just for me and my neighbors, and not just for me and preaching the gospel, but even for you and us as a partnership, that God would open up doors for us to be able to share the good news with people and see the kind of growth we really do want to see at Anchor Church. The kind of growth we want to see at Anchor Church is really what we've called over the years organic and sustainable. It's like Starbucks coffee model. We want organic and sustainable, except instead of coffee, we want to see organic and sustainable growth. We want to see people coming to faith over time, building relationships in the church, but that does take time. And so we're not on a fast track to growth. We're not trying to do a wide-scale marketing campaign, trying to get people from other churches to join our church so we can see some accelerated growth. I don't know what God's going to do. I'm not speaking against that or making fun of it as much as, look, the only real strategy we have is a long-term strategy, a slow growth strategy, and that's to reach people one at a time. And in order to do that, we have to remain and be a solid partnership in all of the other areas. So I'm encouraging you to consider that.